Hey friends, my name's Anica, and in my last video, The Secret to Water Control, we had a bit of a glitch. It was my fault. Towards the end of the video, there's about 90 seconds blacked out just when we were fixing cauliflowers or blooms. So straight after, in a few seconds, I'll show you those 90 seconds. And then after that, we'll have a look at ways of avoiding cauliflowers and a few tips on how to make the most of them. So thanks for watching, and let's get started. Now let's try adding more water than we need to. Here I've painted a patch of colour and run out of paint and missed a spot as well. I quickly mixed some more paint but had too much water in my mix. So when I added this on top, it wasn't right. That's too light and there's too much water in there. And now the water is going to push the pigment up and out, creating a telltale line. To top it off, I also have an accidental drop of water. Now let's see what happens when this is dry. Our uneven patch is dry now, as you can see, and our cauliflower is there sitting like a tree. Sometimes I even like cauliflowers because you can use them to your advantage if you want an effect like that, like special blossoms or trees. But now let's look at a way of rectifying the problem before you have one. Here I'm painting a second patch of brown and adding in a watery bit of paint, as you can see. And now I have a light spot and a dark spot with pigment flowing around here and there. But we all know that this is going to be a patchy patch. So to fix this, we need to wash our brush and dry it, and then use it to mop up the excess water and pigment. And now our goal is to unify this patch by picking up some more mixed paint, a little bit thicker, and brushing over evenly, making sure not to leave any little pools of paint behind, like that one. And this should dry well now. Now let's have a look at a few ways of avoiding cauliflowers. To avoid cauliflowers, we need to keep water or a more watery mixture of paint away from a thicker mixture of paint, or a drier mixture of paint. So if you're in the middle of something and the doorbell rings, oh no, don't answer it. In this example, you can see that the bottom bit of red is drier than the other bit. The other bit's very wet, so the blooms are quite pronounced. In the event of the doorbell ringing, and let's say you're painting nicely away and ding dong, it rings, quickly wash your brush and just blend it out to nothing. That way, when you come back to it, it won't be a harsh line. Depending on what you're painting, the absolute best method is to drop in a bead of paint along the whole line, and there, if you can see this, that paint will sit there for quite a while, give you a chance to speak to your guest and then get back to your painting. So can you see that bead there? That's going to sit there for quite a while. If you're enjoying this video and feel like you're learning something and you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button now, because we've got heaps more to cover. And incidentally, this particular cauliflower or bloom in my upcoming video, which is a little bit more advanced perhaps, but I can show you how you can actually get rid of all cauliflowers. I'm not going to complicate this video this time, but stay tuned. Let's get going. Another way to avoid a cauliflower or bloom is on the side of your painting by your tape. If you have wet paint over your tape, you need to mop it up straight away so that it doesn't run back into the painting and create an awful cauliflower. And the way I do this is with a paper towel or tissue. I will not only wipe the tape, but about 1 millimeter or so into the painting. This is because the paint will continue to move. But what I like to do is get a swirled up tissue, and then if there are any little tiny pools of paint around, I'll blot them up with that, and then use my swirly tissue as a paintbrush and close in the gap. Now let's see when these cauliflowers could be actually useful. I'm applying some dark paint, and then I'm sure you've all seen splatters before. Well, splatters are just cauliflowers, intentional cauliflowers. So I, after painting this, take some clean water on my brush and splash it around. Next, I can use cauliflowers for the intricacies of nature. I'm going to paint a purplish background first, and then apply a second layer to it because I'd like it darker. And obviously mixing in more pigment. I'm adding more red and more blue. It needs to be thicker to be darker. That's one thing. And the other thing is I don't want to go over the top of a surface with less pigment than before. Just before we paint our nature in this triangle, another opportunity has arisen for a cauliflower. If you have a close look at my triangle, there is an area that is slightly wetter than the rest, it seems. So, in order to fix this, I am just going to tilt my paper backwards and forwards to allow the paint to run, and it'll fix itself without me doing anything more to it. Now for some literal cauliflower blooms. In Australia, we have beautiful native flowers, one of which is acacia. We call it wattle on a daily basis, and they're little yellow flowers that smell ever so beautifully, and we can paint them in a couple of ways, but one of them is using cauliflowers. My first little blob is on very wet paper. With techniques such as these, it's really worthwhile experimenting on different dampness of paper. I'm now going for some really juicy, rich, thick and creamy yellow paint, and I'll be dropping this into the purple. This is also called charging, and we looked at this in our previous video. Because these flowers are so soft and fuzzy like little balls of cotton wool, this is an ideal way to make them look like that. The purple has dried a little bit now, so my next bloom reacts differently. I'm using a very small or fine round brush and gently pulling some yellow into the purple and pulling some purple into the yellow. Makes it even more fuzzy. I'm finally adding some yellow to the bloom. I might as well charge in some little green stems. I'm going to make a dark background. Always good to have the paper slightly on an angle. The paint can run down and even itself out. We need to just wait for the glossiness to subside a little bit. I will take my toothbrush and give it a fine splatter like that. Before, when we just splashed paint with our paintbrush, you know, the splatters were big, but with a toothbrush they can be very fine, like a starry night. And then the next thing we can do is do a run, where the water can run from the top and create a special run that you might use for something a bit more abstract. See that run on the bottom? potential disaster, so that needs to be mopped up. So let's do it quick because we know what to do. Just going to give it a final little splatter, see what happens. See those fine little dots? Like the far, far away Milky Way? Then you can come on top with some white gouache and voila!